It's great to be back here in our Friday night home in 30 Rock. What a day to be back. All right. What a day to be back here. If you've not heard, House Democrats are conducting a formal impeachment inquiry into the President of the United States. It's happening. Tonight, actually, this news just broke right before we came on air. Democrats have just subpoenaed the White House for documents relating to that impeachment inquiry. Now, I just think it's worthwhile taking a second to remember how this all started so we don't get lost in the weeds, right? This all started with a very simple story of Donald Trump on the phone pressuring the Ukrainian president to dig up dirt, one could really say like manufacture dirt, on his political rival, Joe Biden. And we learned all about it from a White House memo that the White House itself released, right? Like, just remember, literally, this is something the White House chose to show us on their own. Here you go. See, the call was perfect. Perfect. There's no crime here. Now, it's also the case the crime is literally right there. Like, you could literally read the crime in front of you. The Ukrainian president asking for military assistance, right? The military assistance, $400 million. And the very next line, after he says, like, Mr. President, we are ready to get some new weapons from you guys. The very last line, Donald Trump says, quote, I would like you to do us a favor, though. Though. What's the though doing there? What Donald Trump said in the call on its own, just that part, I think is absolutely an impeachable offense, right? Just the coercion. You don't actually, and I really believe that this is not something that's like written in the Ten Commandments or something, right? We all figure this out as democratic citizens, but I think like full stop, coercing a foreign leader to do a political hit job on your political rival, okay. But the thing is that we've learned more and more is that moment, Trump's phone call, is only one part of an enormous effort from the entire American government, like full spectrum. So it's not just a phone call, right? And it's not just Rudy Giuliani who's running around doing his weirdness. It's like an entire comprehensive use of American foreign policy, the State Department, the ambassador to the EU, the special envoy to Ukraine, all flowing through the White House and the State Department to get them to investigate the Bidens. All right? It's a corrupt abuse of power to coerce an occupied country to hand over manufactured political attack in exchange for nearly $400 million in aid. $400 million in aid, I should say, that they need to keep Russia out of their backyard, right? They are being occupied by Russia right now as I speak to you right here. All while Russia is the country that helped get Donald Trump elected in the first place, which is weird. Yesterday, the former U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, a guy who abruptly quit his job shortly after his name appeared in the whistleblower complaint, he testified before the House Investigating Committee for 9.5 hours. He was there for a while. He turned over pages and pages of text messages between him and other diplomats and Rudy Giuliani, and that trove of text messages was released for everyone to see last night around 10:30. And it's bad. It's really bad. I grew up in the Bronx in the 1980s. I went to public school, and nice, yes. And in the Bronx in the 1980s, in public school, when someone got caught or like called out by someone who like told your business, or like a teacher like caught you, the room would be like, "Ooh, busted." And all I could hear in my mind last night, I was reading these texts, was like my middle school cafeteria being like, "Ooh, busted." They're busted. Because here's the thing. The texts unmask that they were up to no good. All right? They document what were essentially several quid pro quos that they were lining up. The Ukrainians had to deliver something tangible in exchange for Trump's support. It wasn't just a favor, as Trump phrases it. The quote is from one of the diplomats, I think the president really wants the deliverable. I think the president really wants the deliverable. But even more than that, above and beyond the actual wrongdoing that's documented in the text, the thing that is so damning about these texts is the consciousness of guilt that hangs over them. And this is key to me. This is actually key. They knew what they were doing was wrong, and they were trying to keep it secret. On September 1st, okay, we're just going to go through a few. September 1st, the U.S. chief of mission in Ukraine, he's a guy named Bill Taylor, all right? This guy, just to be clear, career Foreign Service officer, served in the George W. Bush administration and in the Obama administration. This is this guy's life work, okay? This is what he does. He texts the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, a guy named Gordon Sondland. You have not heard that name before, I don't think, but you should remember it because he's about to be famous, okay? Sondland actually is a Portland hotel developer who literally gave $1 million to Trump's inauguration and appears to have gotten this gig as a thank you. Okay? That's who Sondland is. All right, so Bill Taylor, career Foreign Service guy, texts, and I quote, "Are we now saying that security assistance and White House meeting are conditioned on investigations?" Now, Sondland, the Trump appointee, the big donor, recognizes this is a dangerous conversation to put in writing. And he responds, "Call me." Huh. All right, okay. Probably best to talk about this one. But that's not all, okay? It is clear from these texts that the career Foreign Service guy is calling out what is happening. He's trying to get it into writing because he knows what's happening. And then there's another exchange. It happens 8 days later. Remember, they're still working out this weird thing about what are the conditions that have to be met, and the aid is still being held up. Another quote from the career Foreign Service guy, Bill Taylor. "As I said on the phone..." Nice one, Bill. Nice one, Bill. "As I said on the phone, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign." That is crazy, all right? So he says it on the phone, then he texts it to bring it in the record. Okay. He's calling out what is clear as day is happening. It is a corrupt abuse of power. It is a quid pro quo. Now, here's the thing about Trump. Always for everything, the president has two big defenses. Two defenses. One, he does everything in public, so there's no scandal. Right? Like, how can it be a scandal? Russia, if you're listening. Like, he told a foreign government to engage in criminal sabotage on his behalf in front of everyone. Right? And number two, and the second defense, and you're going to hear it a lot, and you've been hearing it last week, it basically comes down to this. And these are not my words. This is the characterization of the people defending him. It's essentially that Donald Trump is a morally incontinent sociopath who cannot tell the difference between right and wrong, so you have to just give him a break. Because he, literally doesn't understand the difference. That is the defense. He's just Trump being Trump. What do you want? He literally doesn't know it's wrong. And Trump himself, that's his approach as well, right? He's embracing this. It's him on the driveway publicly committing the same impeachable offenses, right? He's doing it in public. Nothing wrong with it. Saying this morning on the driveway, there's nothing wrong, corruption, there's nothing wrong. But, these texts destroy that weird alibi. The texts show they all knew it was wrong. They're doing it in secret, and they're thinking about how to cover up. They know it's wrong while they're doing it. And that's what I actually think makes this different than some of the other different scandals we've seen, right? Not only they knew it was wrong, that they worked on their cover story. So back to the text, right? It's after midnight, okay? Early last month, our career Foreign Service guy, Bill Taylor, you remember him, right? Career guy, he's in Ukraine. No, it's a lot of names. He's in Ukraine, and he's texting back and forth with Sondland, right? The guy who gave $1 million in inauguration. And this is the part of the text I read to you earlier. The career Foreign Service guy, clearly uncomfortable, trying to put it on the record, everything's happening. Very specifically, he says, quote, "As I said on the phone, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance to help the political campaign." And then, silence. 5 hours go by. The New York Times reports that before responding to this text that's just hanging there, with the career Foreign Service person being like, "What you're doing is crazy and wrong," right? That the Trump appointee, Sondland, spoke to Trump. Times reported that yesterday. He speaks to Trump. And one can imagine, I don't know what was in the conversation, but one can imagine what happened in the conversation between Trump and the appointee about a career diplomat who's now calling out the fact that they are corruptly extorting a foreign occupied nation for a political hit job on the president's political rival. Wow. What should I tell him? Well, the Trump appointee comes back 5 hours later, with this like hilarious lawyered press release cover story in a text, which by the way is the same cover story they're going to use later on when it all becomes public. Bill, I believe you're incorrect about President Trump's intentions. The president has been crystal clear, no quid pro quos of any kind. The president is trying to evaluate whether Ukraine is truly going to adopt the transparency reforms that President Zelensky promised during his campaign. This is a text. And then here it comes again. Here it comes again. I suggest we stop the back and forth by text. I bet you do. Probably should stop texting that. No quid pro quo. Let's stop texting about this. He says it, no quid pro quo. Well, okay. Then it gets weirder. You guys following, right? You're following. Good. Okay. So today it gets weirder. So Republican Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, who is a big supporter of the president, says he basically can do no wrong, says what he did in the driveway yesterday was fine, soliciting hit jobs on his political enemies from the authoritarian state of China. Well, today he tells the Wall Street Journal, Johnson, that the Trump appointee, Sondland, the guy who gave that like lawyered up press release thing saying no quid pro quo, that guy told him, Ron Johnson, back in August, there is a quid pro quo. That guy. The guy who put into writing with the lawyer text after he talked to Trump, no, quid pro quo, no. He went to Senator Johnson and be like, dude, there's a quid pro quo. We're holding up aid to Ukraine in exchange for this crazy investigation. And so then Johnson, again, this is all Johnson told this to a reporter today. Johnson then goes to Trump and says, is there a quid pro quo? Are you holding up aid to Ukraine so that they investigate the Bidens? And Donald Trump, you cannot make this up. Donald Trump, according to Johnson, says, no, and who told you that? Which is just a super innocent thing to say. It's just what you say when you're innocent. And then Johnson basically says, again, according to Ron Johnson, according to this Republican who does not support impeachment, I don't even know if he thinks this is all wrong. So he says to Trump, okay, well, there's no quid pro quo. So I'm going to go, he's in contact with Ukrainians. He says, I'm going to go tell them we're going to release the aid, right? Like, what's the holdup? And Trump says, don't do it. So this is back in August, before all this breaks. The people who are party to this corrupt conspiracy already know it's wrong. They already know they're going to get caught. And they are already working on their cover story. And the cover story is no quid pro quo. Even as they all very obviously put a quid pro quo into place. And then just 2 days after, the career Foreign Service guy, Bill Taylor, calls them out in that text. Am I crazy, or are you guys doing something totally corrupt and illegal? And when he puts that scheme in writing and it blows up their spot, and you know what happened? 2 days after that, Trump releases the aid. Busted.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.